Hello, my name is Carlo Bouillon. I'm a graduate assistant with the TNGO initiative, and I have the pleasure to undertake a brief interview with Richard Marshall, who is the Senior Director of People and Culture at World Vision. Thank you for allowing us to interview you. This will be a helpful tool for students and faculty alike.
Sure.
So, could you briefly describe your position as Senior Director of People and and Culture?
Yeah, so basically I work in the Global Centre part of World Vision, which is not actually in one particular place. I happen to work out of our London office, but we have people all around the world that work as part of what we call the Global Centre. I've previously worked at a national office level and also at a regional office level when I worked in Bangkok, and also in one of our fundraising offices also in the UK. So I work in the global people and culture team, which is what we call our human resources and organisation development function. And I'm now responsible for working particularly with our fundraising offices, leading and guiding around our people practices, people management and organisation development.
Very interesting. So could you, for those who don't know World Vision, could you describe more what World Vision does and the type of system that they have?
Sure. So World Vision is it's a large multinational organisation. We work in about 100 countries around the world. We're a relief and development humanitarian organisation. So we're working to really affect child well-being around the world through raising funds, income and influence in order to have the biggest impact we can have on child development and community development. We're a Christian organisation, so that's the foundation of who we are, and I guess gives us a sense of sort of mission and purpose to bring about change in the lives of children and communities.
Great. So from your past experience, you worked in the private sector, and now that you work in the international NGO. So what was it like working the transition from private to public, and if you could describe that just a bit?
Yeah, so I started out working for what's now AstraZeneca, so a big pharmaceutical company. It was a great training. There was lots of resources and challenges, of course. And at one level, moving into the NGO sector, some of the challenges are the same. The difficulty of performance management or using performance management, finding leaders that want to manage people and not just be task orientated. But I think some of the differences are the resources clearly aren't the same. They aren't there. So you end up having a kind of a broader role and often a deeper role. Sometimes you get more responsibility because there's less people and less resources when you move into the NGO sector. I think also you see a level of passion and commitment that is consistent across the NGO work. So high levels of engagement. People really kind of love what they do. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's a double-edged sword because people then get very frustrated when things don't go the way they want them to go. But I think the for-profit sector also runs on values. You know, I don't think we have a kind of monopoly on integrity or ethical practice. Some of the values are often the same. I think the other difference I would say is in the not-for-profits, there's sometimes less consistency around how things are done. So there's a lot more variability from department to department, country to country. So pockets of excellence in what we do, and then some areas where we fall well below standards. So we're constantly working to try and bring greater consistency in the kind of work that we do.
So what's your typical day like, and what should students imagine?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a typical day now, because for me, because my role is global, mm-hmm. so it depends whether I'm I spend some of my time working from home, based at home near Oxford in the UK. I work out of the London office that I mentioned, but then I also travel and I work in and with the other offices that I'm working for. So if I'm traveling, there's a certain amount of time spent in transit and so on. I think that's become easier now with mobile devices, so mm-hmm. it's much easier to work on the move. But inevitably there's contact with a lot of people in a lot of different places, so you get used to working with time zones, and realizing that for me, in the morning is the time where I can contact people that are kind of to the right of the UK and in Asia and Australia, and in the afternoon I can contact people that are to the left of me in the US and Canada and so on. So there is a lot of contact by Skype, by email. WebEx is our sort of web-based meetings server, so we have meetings that run like that. So there's a lot of virtual work involved. For me, there's work involved in policy, development, in the sort of architecture of what we do around people and around culture. But also there's just work involved in solving problems with people and dealing with challenges, sending and receiving emails. It kind of, maybe it sounds glamorous, but actually some of it is just, it's office work.
Okay. So in terms of these challenges that you're talking about in your everyday work life, what's some of the knowledge and perspectives and skills that you find very applicable in confronting some of the challenges of your job, and what kind of things can you recommend for students to develop?
So I think particularly as I've worked in different countries, I've found the ability to understand differences across countries and understand differences with people. I think that's something I've learned over time, that you kind of think your own perspective maybe is the only perspective originally, and then you realize actually people have different perspectives because of where they're coming from. So really trying to understand, where is the other person coming from? What's it like for them? I know, having received a lot of emails from the centre when I sat in a regional office and not always been able to reply to all of them, that's kind of made it easier when I've been sending out requests for information and finding the answers don't come back, because I remember what it's like. So trying to understand what it's like to be in the other person's shoes, I think is really critical. The ability to also look for the areas of leverage. I guess there is always so many things you could do, but what are the things that make most difference? And I think the other thing I would say is the importance of getting into action without necessarily having worked everything out. Sometimes you have problems that you think, I'm never going to be able to figure out how to do this. But sometimes you just need to take the next step and meet the next person or ask the next question, and then things start to move from there.
So you said that you worked internationally in Southeast Asia or Asia in general.
Yeah.
So do you recommend students who want to pursue a career in international development to take that route?
Definitely. If you can get the opportunity to work in another culture from your own, I think that's a great experience. There's nothing you can kind of read that really prepares you for that. So actually spending time living and working in another culture, I think it makes you more aware of your own culture, but also gives you an ability just to appreciate differences. And sometimes the differences aren't just cultural or aren't even cultural. They might be personality differences, age differences, gender differences, and just getting used to working with a wide range of people, I think really equips you for this kind of work.
And what advice would you give to students, especially students who come from the global north that want to work in development? What general advice do you give to them?
In terms of going about getting a job, I think networking, I think, is probably the most critical skill. They say, a large proportion of the jobs that are there to be done don't get publicly advertised. So building your network and understanding or getting to know different organizations. I think also figuring out what are the things you feel most passionate about. What are the issues that you care about? Because I think if you find the work that you love to do, then that's going to come across whenever you get the chance to be interviewed for something, and that's going to set you apart from other people that are doing it. So I think, particularly earlier in your career, maybe getting an opportunity to try different things, get involved in different areas of work, and then being able to focus down and work out what is it you really enjoy and what is it that you're really good at, and that will really help.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and I would really appreciate your advice to students, and I'm sure that it will be most useful for them. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you too.